This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor. Kyle Bauer is with John Larson with the American Farmland Trust. Let's learn how they are saving vital farmland from development in prime real estate areas.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I get a chance to visit with John Larson. He's with American Farmland Trust. John, I've heard of American Farmland Trust and I've heard of land trusts. Can you give us just a bit of a history of American Farmland Trust?
American Farmland Trust is a 40-year-old nonprofit. We were formed in 1980 really by a group of folks that saw just this increase in development pressure on some of our most productive farmland. You know, many times the farmland that was getting paved over and turned into strip malls was in areas very close to metropolitan areas, you know, so outside of the D.C. area, outside of Chicago, really rampant development. And what we really saw at that point in time was there needed to be a mechanism by which some of that most productive farmland could be protected into the future. And so conservation easements were part of what the trust first focused on, and we worked really hard to get language in place that made it so that it was a voluntary decision of a landowner to protect that property in perpetuity, and then trying to do it in such a way that we compensated them for that value difference of the development value compared to the farmland, so that then they could make a commitment both in the long term, but then also re-inject that capital back into the into the operation right there in the short term. And so had some really good successes. We've protected with others' help about 6.5 million acres over the last 40 years. But when you think about, you know, production agriculture and rangeland being like 900 million acres, it's a pretty small percentage when you really think about it.
So who are your members?
So our members are individuals, and you know, they for $25 can become a member of the Farmland Trust. We use that money to help do project work around the country. The trust is, we're over 100 employees now, but you know, one of the things I'm very proud of is that more than 70% of those employees are in the field working on projects that are of value to their local community, and many times that's directly with farmers and ranchers.
So what sort of thing do those people in the individual communities do to further your cause?
So, as I said, we really formed around farmland protection. And let's think about it in the long-term viability of that land for production agriculture. But we also recognize really soon in the organization's history that without thinking about farmers, we weren't thinking about farmland then, because it's only farmland if there's a farmer on it. And so viability both environmentally and economically. And so the environmental kind of sustainable, regenerative piece is the other part of our mission, where we out on the landscape have conservation technicians that work directly with folks to implement conservation practices. And we really are focused right now on kind of this regenerative agriculture approach, where we help folks to see that Here's a management change that we could make that actually has environmental benefit, but then also, I mean, my background's in production agriculture, and I understand the economic side of it too. And so we actually have a project that we're doing with USDA right now where we're co-branding a series of case studies, working directly with some of our farmers to be able to define what that economic value of making those kind of decisions means to them. And that always isn't a positive as far as more bushel in the bin. But as we know from many times in agricultural history, it isn't about gross. It's about what is left net in the pocket. And so these case studies really go into the transition to these different practices and how that then can have an over time and sometimes an immediate impact on that bottom line of economic sustainability too.
We're visiting with John Larson. He's with American Farmland Trust. This is Kyle Bauer reporting.
Thanks, Kyle. After the break, it's this week's Kansas soybean update.